that was beloved by her people. Yes, that is what I said, a country beloved by her people. Her stars, they seemed to shine just a little bit brighter. And the sun, it always shone just a little bit warmer, but the rains were a little bit different. It wasn't like this land here where the rains poured incessantly for days upon days. No, no. The rains over this country were finicky. They were always a little unstable, but as time passed, they grew more and more unpredictable and unreliable until one day they just stopped altogether. A drought followed. And as time passed, storehouses that had once been filled to the brim with provisions only held cobwebs in their empty corners. My own existence in this perilous situation, one solitary pumpkin in a deserted patch, it was a miracle. The chance encounter of one stray seed and another girl's poor multitude of tears. Now, the girl's name was Cinderella. Cinderella lived in a modest manor estate that was run by her stepmother following the death of her father. Now, I need to make a clarification here because unlike what some sources report, the stepmother was not cruel and unkind. No, 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 no. She was actually a rather shrewd and resourceful businesswoman. And the weight of managing the manor had fallen on this one woman, not only taking care of her own daughters and her stepdaughter, but the manor and all of its servants in the face of this drought. This burden grew heavier and heavier as the drought persisted. And it was only through the stepmother alone and her strict resourcefulness that the manor lasted as long as it did. However, Cinderella was a rather sensitive young child and often took her stepmother's strictness for cruelty. She would often come to the pumpkin patch as a place of solitude to escape her stepmother's cruel gaze. The stepmother knew this, of course, and respected this place as Cinderella's retreat. One day, however, though, as Cinderella sat lamenting her fortunes to me again, I heard the stepmother's voice booming up the path. "Cinderella! Cinderella! Have you read this royal summons from the palace?" No, stepmother, I didn't dare read such an important-looking letter. No. It's from the palace demanding that we send them almost all of our remaining resources. Because of her transformation, but the godmother was not done. No. Her gaze landed on me, and with another flick of her wand, whoosh, I started to change. I felt myself growing at a nausea on my sides, and doors were seared into my skin. Okay, Cinderella had nothing on mine, okay? Without another moment, Cinderella gladly trotted inside. I waited outside for her for hours and hours. The night grew quiet and still and dark. But then I heard some footsteps, and then I heard cries and some masculine shouting. But then Cinderella jumped into the carriage and we started rolling away again. We started going faster and faster, taking corners far too fast, and the streets were far too dark to be going at this speed. We tumbled into the pumpkin patch without a moment to lose, for as we did, I felt myself changing again. Sitting in my newly restored pumpkin state, I became aware of Cinderella sitting next to me, clutching one glass slipper to her chest. She wasn't crying. She was barely moving. She was so pale and still. As it turns out, the prince had spent the entire night dancing with Cinderella and subsequently ignoring every other international prospect that he was supposed to be courting. The palace officials were furious, but the prince was in love. Cinderella, torn between this new love that she felt for her prince and the reality that she may very well have cost her country its future, was simply paralyzed. She sat in the pumpkin patch all night, and as dawn broke, I became aware of heavy, dark clouds hanging over us. Footsteps crunched on the path coming up to the pumpkin patch, and I was sure it was the stepmother coming to demand an answer from Cinderella. She might be living up to that stereotype now. But it was the prince, and into his hands he gently cradled the other glass slipper. Cinderella jumped to her feet and started wiping her eyes and wiping the snotties away from her nose and blubbering about his responsibilities and her interference in the country and the raids and oh my goodness, but he interrupted her with a kiss. She kissed him back, and suddenly the sky shook with thunderous booms and lightning split the clouds, and I felt something that I had never felt in my entire life. Raindrops. Big, splashing raindrops poured from the clouds. Cinderella and her prince danced for joy because with their love, the rains had finally returned.
So did you rewrite this, or is this a version that you found?
This was a version that I created in a storytelling class last fall. We got to pick a fairy tale and basically adapt it any way that we wanted. So we started by choosing what perspective we were going to speak from. And so we looked at the characters in any kind of version that we wanted, or do we want to add a character? Do we want to, is there a stepbrother now? Is there, was it a squash instead of a pumpkin? But I chose the pumpkin's perspective. And
should have gone to zucchini.
That would have just been awkward.
It would have been a motorcycle.
Yes. And from there, we just crafted, well, where do we want it to take place? What are the other factors that are going on? So I was like, what if it's an international setting? Like, what if there's an international crisis? And went from there.
Have you done this kind of work before?
Not explicitly with retelling fairy tales or stories. I love telling stories. I love acting and stepping into shoes like that. So it was kind of fun to go through the whole process of taking a familiar story, choosing a character, stepping into that character's story, and getting up and telling a familiar story in a new, creative way.
I appreciated your different voices for your characters. Why did the fairy grandmother sound a bit like Fran Drescher?
Because I think when I was first practicing this last semester, I was just trying out fun, quirky voices, and I wanted them all to be very distinct. And she's this fun, flighty character. She's in and she's out, and she does her job and she's gone. And that was fun for me.
Along those lines, both the voice and the character of the stepmother, where was that coming from for you?
In all honesty, I noticed my story getting long if I dealt with the stepmother being the stereotypical cruel, wicked stepmother. And that was also just felt stale, so I wanted to shift the focus a little bit to, okay, international, drought crisis, food shortage, and still a mystical fairyland setting. And so I just wanted to take the focus away from her that made the story a little easier, and dealing with her in that way and changing her from a villain to just a misunderstood character helped that process go more smoothly.
Thank you for your UN version of Cinderella.